Hi everyone. I'm Vinny, working at Isobar. So my topic today is Sitecore Publishing Service. Um, so relatively, actually it's around 3 years old. The product's around 3 years old. So I've been through the pain since version 2, and now Sitecore is released version 4.1 to work together with Sitecore 9.2. So go through my learnings today and some of the pain points as well. So, a bit about me. I'm a solution architect at Isobar on Sitecore and Akamai. My Twitter handle, Sitecore Slack handle, LinkedIn, my blog. So here. Agenda today, I'll go straight into the demo. I'll talk about the history of publishing in general in Sitecore, the good stuff about the publishing service, the bad stuff about the publishing service, the changes that you have to do to use publishing service and fully utilize it. The ugly side of it. Quickly go through whether you should use it, some of the use cases that a lot of people may find useful. Q&A at the end as well. Just for reference, I actually haven't watched that movie before, and I was struggling finding meme images for the movie and topic, so maybe the title wasn't that great after all. All I know is that it's Clint Eastwood is one of these guys, that's all I know. Demo. So I'll give you a quick demonstration on the difference between the good old publishing that we're all used to and publishing service. A bit of a background. I'm using Habitat Home Corporate, which is a MVC website from Sitecore demo. It's literally just a good old MVC website, no SXA, no JSS, no commerce. It's literally just a straight demo that Sitecore's put together to demonstrate what Helix is. And I'll use that on Publishing Service 4.1 as well. So let's go straight into the demo. So on the left here, this is the one, you can see a publishing icon in here, which is the new icon that indicates that it is publishing service. I'll just quickly refresh just to be sure that I'm still in. No, I'm not. No guesses for what the password is. This is the good old website with no publishing, just the normal publishing, as you can see in here. Just to prove that nothing has been there's no funniness in the databases. Oh no, the recording bar is in the way. Yes. So we go to the web database in here, and let's go to content editor. So you can see all you see in here is just literally Sitecore Home and nothing else in here. Likewise with this guy in here as well. This is the publishing service instance. Thanks, Jason. Yep, web database. So, hopefully this works because the trouble of demoing this is that I have to make sure that nothing is published. So the only thing that I've done is using Sitecore Habitat Home utilities, make 2 instances of Sitecore, and then build the, literally deploy the Habitat Home corporate website into each individual instances, one with publishing service, one without, and then that was it. I couldn't do it anymore because otherwise it will ruin the demo. So hopefully everything works as it should. So what I'm going to do is, because I know for a fact that this guy is going to be way slower, I'm going to let this guy have a head start. Let's publish here. Huh? Yeah, go with the master. Thank you. So publish site, I'm going to republish the whole site just because. And then hit the publishing button. So this will go on. Yes. And then this guy, we will do the same for this guy as well. But instead, I'm going to use the full site publish. So this is the new dashboard. And I'm going to use the repair mode as well, which will force publishing service is not running. Huh? it shouldn't matter because I'm actually on the, oh, this is embarrassing. Hang on. I could run IS, making sure that, I swear to God, this was working yesterday when I was working on it. So let me just make sure that the IS service is running. Publishing. Oh God, this is so embarrassing. Huh? I know, right? I'm going to recycle the Apple. I'm going to restart the service. Okay. So quickly go through the testing as well. I know, right? Sorry?
What is your main purpose?
So, getting them done with work. That was my main focus. So quickly, this API, what this tells me is that the publishing service is running. So there's a little web API endpoint that shows that the publishing service is working. So hopefully, when I come back to here and I do a refresh, hopefully that means it is working. No, not yet. So that means the config file is not working. I will quickly show you another quick demo on what it should look like. I won't publish it, but anyway, this is a QA site. So you see this sort of dialogue, and these are 2 modes. This is version 2, unfortunately, so I couldn't get the sort of test of this, but anyway, I'll continue on because there's some key KPIs that someone has actually posted and that can actually show you how well the publishing service works. So I'll come back to the, so I was trying to make a sacrificial offering to the demo god. It didn't work, obviously. Yeah, so this one is like, the Chinese people usually go to temples, for roast pig, sacrificing the demo god. Demo god didn't like it, so embarrassing. The demo is actually not that impressive, just so you guys know, because it's the code in Visual Studio that is way more impressive. Because it just works, except I didn't place, there's probably a problem with the config patch somewhere. Quickly go through the history of publishing from a Sitecore perspective. The idle publishing has been around forever, since probably V3, V4, right? In 7.2, Sitecore introduced a dedicated publishing instance. Basically, it's another web application with a Sitecore kernel on it, and all it does is just handling the publishing jobs and nothing else. All it does is just publishing. So which means when you are in the CM, you hit the publish button, publish dialog comes up, you hit publish, and then the whole thing just disappears. And then instead of you getting the spinner to say publishing, you will no longer get the spinner, and then it just, you've got another row that looks at the event queue and just starts look at the, just start processing all the publishing and the indexing as well. Also, there's a additional settings available in 7.2 called parallel publishing. There's a whole bunch of settings in there that you can say how many CPUs, how many threads, and how many jobs can go on all at the same time. We tried that for 7.2 before, and it wasn't working very well because the CPU, the thread, there was a whole bunch of SQL database deadlock. So we had to basically turn it off because you either tell the client to say, hey, you need to throw more memory or throw more CPU juice into your SQL server, or you actually can't use it. So it was a bit of a, yeah, and it wasn't that great. So, and also the fact that it still processes one item at a time, just like, the traditional publishing. So a lot of people try that, thought it works, but sort of better than nothing before. So publishing service was released for 8.2, and it was actually the first Sitecore.NET Core application that is available as general release. The first .NET Core application from Sitecore is actually Commerce. However, for publishing service, this is the one that is that was available as a general release. It is the first .NET Core application. It works on Azure Web Apps as well. However, the official wording is that it is only supported from 4 and upwards. However, we've got it working in version 2, version 3. And also, if you look at the new documentation website right now, especially when you look at line 2, there is actually no mention of the dedicated publishing instance anymore. So all the documentation is now gearing towards the publishing service. All right, quickly go over the good stuff. There's some dramatically speed increase. So Ahab El-Gandhi, so he's a product, one of the product engineers in Sitecore that works on the publishing service. So he's got a blog post in here that tells you the differences between publishing. So he's in his website, he was saying publishing used to take 3 hours for a particular large website, and now it is just half an hour. So there's some comparisons there. We have done comparisons with an 80 gig database on master to web with just the web vanilla with like nothing on it. So it was just a blank Sitecore database on the web, and then master was 80 gig. We did a publish as well on a production-like environment on a VM. Using the traditional publishing, forget it, that's not going to happen. You will start getting timeouts, it's not going to work. And then we used publishing service, and that took an hour and a half. And it finished. Another feature is called content availability. So a lot of people, it's basically a live mode on web database. Anyone know what live mode is by any chance? So live mode is a concept that Sitecore came up with that was already working in version 6, where if you've got a CM instance, a content offering instance, and you just want to browse to the website, traditionally the CM instance will point straight to the master database on the website under the site's definition. And when you turn on live mode, what the Sitecore context database get item, as an example, will do is it will filter out, works out what can be published according to the publishing restrictions and according to the workflow. The workflow does not necessarily need to be in a final state, and then you will show up that particular content. So that's what live mode is. So you can have 30 versions of a Sitecore item in live mode, and then you will manage to work yourself out according to the publishing restriction on the time that you're trying to look at a particular web page. So you then service the correct version up to you. Obviously, in the content offering environment, the live mode is quite processing intensive heavy because it has to work out all of that criteria. So you've got 30 versions in master database, it will take a little while to work it out. But in the web database, with live mode in web database, chances are you probably only have 4 versions or 3 versions. So if you turn on content availability feature in publishing service, when you publish it, it will work out what is the upcoming versions that will be served from the instance where you hit the publish button until to the future, and it will work out all the versions that are available right now, and then you will publish all of those versions on the web database as well. So you have multiple versions in the web database. There's also a feature that Sitecore extends on, where the content search indexes will also look at the publish from and publish to date as well. And then it will also extend the content search API out of the box to also look at the publish from and publish to computer fields as well. So your content search will service the correct index item, and also the publishing web database will also show up the correct item as well, item version as well. Obviously, drastically reduce the publishing latency as well. I'll talk more on that later. There's a support for XSA 1.8 and above for publishing service version 3.13, greater than 3.13. So it has to be version 4, so that means you need to be on line 1, and XSA 1.8 for this to work properly on an XSA website. So as of 4.1, publishing service and publishing module is a little package zip that you install on your CM. publishing service is .NET Core app. They are now releasing separately. So which means the rules that are calculating what needs to be published is in the .NET Core app. All the events that needs to be generated in the event queue, content search, index updating, that is they are all being released separately now. So that means you can update the module, Sitecore can now update the module, but not having to touch the publishing service, and vice versa as well. Another good thing is that the publishing service does not count towards a Sitecore instance for clients who are still using perpetual licensing, because there's no Sitecore.kernel.dll on it anymore. So for clients who are not on the consumption model, this is a pretty good win. Now, the bad stuff. So traditionally, you will have publish related item. A lot of people will implement their own logic on what else needs to be published when that item is ticked. So let's just say I publish a page that is called related media item, so that will get picked up. However, let's just say, oh, it's a PDF file, or it is actually a specific page that I'm publishing. I also want to publish, let's just say, the children of the media item that you've attached to. Normally, in that scenario, that will not work. With the old way of publishing, you could say the PDF, the child item of the PDF, let me write a pipeline processor in the get related items, get item references pipeline, have another processor in it, inject it, and then you will try to work out the logic, and then you will publish that child item of the PDF file that that was an example. So you would have done that. The usage of the history engine and the database in the publishing targets are no longer available. So what you used to be able to do is master, publish to web, you turn on the history engine on the web database, all of those records will get filled into the web database as well. That used to happen with publishing service. No, that's not going to happen. Because of performance reasons, the history engine has been totally discarded. So you can no longer work out easily what items were published in this publishing run that you've just invoked. So that's not going to happen. The publishing dialog looks a bit wonky compared to the good old publishing as well. One of the reasons why is that the publishing is done by another separate team in Sitecore. So you get a lot of these sort of quirks, with the little individual products that Sitecore puts out as well. The following events are no longer available: publish fail, publish item processing, publish item process. All of these, they are all gone. You can no longer use them anymore. A lot of people like to use publish item processing and publish item processed, but they're all gone. You can no longer use them. So some of the changes that you have to do: obviously follow the installation guide to set up publishing service. Corey Smith, Sitecore MVP in US, he has made an ARM template to set up the Azure web apps and installing the publishing service as well as part of the ARM template. So check it out if you are using PaaS. Whenever you've got some custom code, let's just say you're doing an importer, and then at the end of the importing process you want to publish. We used to use the Sitecore publishing publish options and Sitecore publisher, the publishing publisher, to invoke the publishing action. So that all has to change and use Sitecore publishing publish manager, which was introduced in Sitecore version 8.0. So you have to change all the code to go into there. An example of a usage of publishing manager is Hedgehog TDS post-deploy action. It uses that. I had a Unicorn, the latest version. It does not use the publishing manager to publish the same items. I'm not saying that it doesn't work, because it works. It's just that you will not see the Unicorn published in your publishing service dashboard. It just won't come up. Which means publishing will be slower than using publishing service. PowerShell extensions. There's a couple of publishing commands, but they also do not work as well. So you have to use publishing service. So basically, PowerShell script, you have to invoke your C# classes on publishing manager to publish using publishing service. So all of those PowerShell commands, you can no longer use them as well. So someone should try to do a pull request in to create those new commands, maybe. We had a problem when we went live with it. The SQL database IOPS and DTUs went through the roof because all the work has been shifted from the content management instance into the SQL database directly, because it uses SQL bulk copy to work out the differences between what needs to be published, and then it just generates a massive SQL copy query and just slams the SQL database. So it went through the roof. We were receiving alerts on the SQL database, so we had to up the IOPS and the DTUs for the SQL database. Whatever has been published, they are pushed into a brand new pipeline called publish end result batch with a pipeline argument called publish end result batch args. It has got all the publishing operations in detail. They call it manifest operation, and a class called item result as well. However, I find it's actually not detailed enough, so I've made some improvements. The item context is lost when you are publishing something. So when you publish it, publish something, all the context is lost. So that means you will say, oh, I've unpublished this GUID, but you don't get the Sitecore path, you don't get any of that. So that means you can't even work out where that item is located originally. So it doesn't come, you won't be able to see it. So the changes that I make can also imitate the get item references pipeline. And then another tip is that if you try to do any custom publishing logic, please put all your logic in your CM code, in your CM, and not try to modify anything in publishing service at all, which is all .NET code, and it's just a whole bunch of voodoo magic in there. It's just because the code level detail is at such a low level, it's extremely difficult to work out what they are trying to do. So best to maintain your additional logic into CM. Quickly show you code. So this is the pipeline I was talking about, publish end result batch, and I've made a custom processor to retrieve what is being published. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to figure out what was deleted, because that's the trickiest part. So the way I've worked it out was, let's have a look at the recycle bin first. So I use a archive. You look at the archive, Sitecore archive, recycle bin, and then you work out whether this item has been deleted in the recycle bin first. And then that allows me to retrieve the actual item tree path. So /Sitecore/content/ whatever gives you the full path, and which means it allows you to iterate back through up the tree to work out what the parent of the item that has been deleted. If it doesn't work, if you can't find it in recycle bin, I'll look in the archive. And then there's another in here. I'm showing, okay, it says nothing has actually been deleted. I can actually find the actual item in master database, which means publishing restrictions have been applied. So you can say, okay, that's what has been unpublished, and then you just service up the item again. In here, it tells you what has been changed. So I'll try to fill up the path, the item path, the language and the version, and what has been changed as well, and the different field changes. So I've changed, this publish has changed the title, has changed the image. So it surfaces all that in here as well. So what you can do is, now that you've got a list of things that have been changed during your publish run, so you can now be creative as you want to figure out what to do with all of those things that you've just, that has been published. So I want to say a very classic example is, okay, I'm going to do a CDN cage invalidation. So you've worked out what has been changed. So you do send a CDN cage invalidation out to your CDN. Another way is to say, some people say, okay, something has been unpublished, better notify someone. So that's another way this is how you do it. And then the publish related item. So this is where you can work out, okay, something has been published. Now let me fire off another publish as well, because I want to get the publish related item, custom publish related item logic into there. So that's another way to do it. So this is probably the best way to do it. Whatever was out of the box, there's just not enough context. So it's best to use this set of code in here, something like that, to help you out. Keep in mind, content availability publishes multiple versions of an item in a go. So that means all of those logics, you need to, if you say, I want to publish something in midnight, if you have content availability turned on, those events will not get fired off at midnight. So just be mindful of that if you use content availability. The publishing events will not fire as a version expires as well. So if a version is expired as well, with content availability, it will also not fire the event. So be very careful in that. So there's also some logics that you need to do, because traditionally you would use content search and say, just get me that version. However, now we've got multiple versions. So keep that in mind if you're using content search. A lot of testing is required as well. My recommendation is try to use a greenfield project instead of a retrofitting a brownfield, because you'll be doing probably doing a lot of code changes. Now we've got multiple versions. You have to handle multiple versions in a database. So something to keep in mind if you use content availability. There is a event handler called item save handler from the publishing service. If you've got a multilingual site, this has to be turned on. The default config file has commented out. Looks at share fields with multiple versions, and looks at the, doesn't matter what language it is, if you change the share field, you have got a problem. That means you have to get publishing service to potentially look at all the different languages and publish those as well. So this event will fire that. There's a tiny performance hit. So if you don't have a multilingual website, don't turn it on. There's a raise remote events. So when you publish, you will say, okay, I published 1,000 items. Maybe instead of only incrementally update the index 1,000 times, maybe you should re-index the entire index set instead. 1,000, in my opinion, is too low. You should probably look at something like 10,000 instead. However, for a large site, especially with language format enabled, be very careful. 10,000 means your event queue table is going to get clogged up. We all know what happens when it goes around 20,000 event queue, site is slow. You may have a culling job in the background that actually starts culling those event queue items periodically. Be very careful with that. That means some of the events may get culled already before it can even be processed by the deliveries. So be very careful with that. Lots of testing required. For 9.2 above, in conjunction with using the publishing service role, 9.2 has introduced a separate indexing role. So all it does is just handle index updates. That's all that role does. So maybe use that in conjunction to further reduce the load on CM. My recommendation for Azure Web Apps is using S1 for non-production, and for production P1, V2. The reason why I'm saying using standard and not basic, even though it is a very lightweight application, is you want to maintain the network quality with the web apps in the database. So basics, the network quality with basic is very bad. Lots of latency. Standard is better. Premium is even better than standard. So that's the reason why I'm recommending this sizing for non-production and production. Horizontal scaling, this is wrong. It's actually supported somewhat. Yeah, so hits one publishing service and then hits another one with the load balancer in front. It will just work itself out. However, be very careful, because by doing that, that means you're introducing a lot of SQL operations by doing that. So just be very careful with horizontal scaling. I would not turn that on without a lot of thinking behind it, because you're going to compromise your database performance. So be very careful with that. Now the ugly side. I have had an entire website going down because the publisher service did a miscalculation and unpublished the entire layouts folder. So you lost all your devices, you lost all your controller renderings, you lost all your view renderings. The whole lot was totally disappeared from the web database. So that was in a very old version of publishing service. keep in mind the bugs can still happen because the calculation of what needs to be published are totally rewritten in publishing service compared to good old publishing. As of version 4.1, the calculation of a site publish and an item publish has now been merged together as of 4.1. But before that, the calculations were done in two completely separate type of code base. So you would have a lot of bugs, especially with item publish. The calculations have been done wrong, incorrectly. However, site publish seems to have fixed it, right? This is still happening in version 3.13. So if you're using Sitecore 9.02 and want to use this, be very careful that this can happen. Hopefully 4.1 makes it a little bit better. The .NET Core application introduces another complexity in layer. Like I said before, the good old publishing, you could work out the pipelines, but however, the .NET Core application is just at a very low level calculation. It's really, really, really difficult to understand. So just be mindful of that as well. There are still some ongoing issues with clone items. So, clones are not being published. When the original clone was unpublished, but the children was not unpublished. Whole bunch of scenarios. Be very careful with clone items. Supposed to be fixed in 4.1, but let's see. Language fallback issue. It was really noisy, creating way too many event queues with language fallback before. It has only been recently resolved to a satisfactory level, so keep that in mind. Oh God, Ruben, help! Things will go wrong, and when they go wrong, you need to turn the logging level to diagnostic to expose more logging information for cycle purpose. And the diagnostic logs are massive. We've got diagnostic log at the moment running in a production website. It's generating 3 gig text file every single day because we need cycle support. So we have to leave it turned on, right? So 3 gig of text file per day, which means if you're using app service, don't shoot those logs over to AI because you will blow your budget immediately in like the first 2 hours of your month. That's right. So I would leave the logs to be logged in disk, even using Azure Web Apps. Don't go to application insights. Login cycle support, oh my God. It takes forever. Oh no, hang on.
The demo bots really didn't like this.
You know what? I'm going to duplicate this screen instead. Cool. So logging support tickets, very painful, extremely painful. First, oh God. Publishing service is really, really bad because first you have to generate the support package. You have to send the publishing service logs, which I said is 3 gig a day. You have to do a database export of the publishing underscore table in master web database and all the publishing target database, event queue, and the properties table. So to export all of those out. Sometimes Cycle will even ask for a full database backup to do that. So another thing is that some of the authors, because they need to get their content out, they will get desperate, and then instead of publishing, they will transfer the item instead. So once that happens, you just lost your moment of capturing that data for Cycle support. So if they need something out urgently, and then they just did a transfer, you've just lost the opportunity to have all the right information for Cycle support. This process, we scripted it, still takes 45 minutes. Yeah, very painful. So I just talk about the early versions. We unpublished the entire site. Well, unpublished a section of the folder which brought the entire site down. Mikhail Holberg he wrote a very detailed blog post of all the problems that he's encountered in version 2 and up to 3.13. Very, very detailed, very technical detail. Check out his blog post, amazing. Because I'm one of our clients using 8.2.7 still, officially supporting, officially supported version is actually publishing service 2.2.1. However, there's just way too many bugs in 2.2.1, and Sitecore does not look like they are porting bugs that have been fixed for version 3, ported back to version 2. So it doesn't look like it is happening. So another thing that sort of works and officially supported is using publishing service 3.13, but publishing service module 2.2.1. So it's like a bit of a mixed match. It didn't break, but we haven't pushed it to production yet. But it's something that we may actually do to come across to fix all of the bugs. Yes, it's nasty. So should you use it? I would say on a large database, which has a lot of large published operations in a multilingual scenario, maybe have a think about it, because what we are seeing is that the publishing queue, using the Github publishing queue just gets stuck, and your queue will start building up. Our client has 50 authors, all concurrently using the CMS during business hours, and they keep hitting the publish button, like make a change, publish, make a change, publish. That queue starts building up. And then he will say, oh, why isn't my stuff up yet? Why isn't my stuff up yet? Oh, because it's stuck in the queue. Because someone else has hit a publish home, sub-items, related items, tagged. All right. So that guy has, yeah. If you've got many concurrent authors, you'll benefit because CM is not doing the processing anymore on publishing. Performance issue improvements as well. You've got a lot of performance issue in CM, worth having a look. Like I said, it works on XSA 1.9 onwards, so worth taking a look. A very good scenario on why you should use it is that in a HA DR setup where you've got a cluster in Europe or a cluster in Australia, you want to basically allow, you want to make sure that your published target web databases are they all have the same content. So instead of using the complexities with your Solr search cluster that you set up, because your Solr or your Azure search should be part of your HA strategy. So you're going to have a lot of trouble trying to replicate some of those index updates actions with Solr and or with Azure search. I think Azure search is slightly easier where you can do a replication. Solr becomes extremely tricky. So one way to do that is to set up a different publishing target. So I would say the one in Australia, I will call it web-Southeast Australia, and the one in another region, I will call it web-East Asia as an example. And then your Solr cluster would tied into the different regions as well. And what happens is that when you publish it, obviously content search events will get fired off, and then you will just update the relevant Solr search indexes as you need to. Using the Github publishing, the latency is crazy. It's so crazy that it just times out if you're doing a large operation. So using publishing service, because it uses SQL copy, it drastically reduces that latency. So you've got this criteria, publishing service definitely worth having a look. Jeremy Davis has documented his approach. Have a look at his approach. Really well documented. I was helping him out a little bit on Slack as well on the setup. But yeah, it's worth having a look at his approach. Really, really good approach. So I guess that's it for my presentation. Unfortunately, the demo didn't work. Demo god didn't like me. So, but yeah, any questions? Yes.
Suppose you've got a site with maybe 1 million items, 9 different language variants, uses a flood of the publishing queue. Apart from reinitializing the CMS or forcing out full recycling, what do you reckon the ways to truncating the publishing queue? Do you think there's a more graceful way to cancel off jobs at the publishing queue?
So I'll repeat the question because I'm recording. So the question is on gracefully how to, I guess, process large items that have been stuck in a publishing queue, an event queue.
Or even selectively cancel something. You've got someone's accidentally published the whole site.
Yep.
And you've got a backlog of other users who published items.
I think one way to do it is, unfortunately, it's a difficult one. So this is the good old publishing, using the traditional publishing method, yes, I'm guessing? Yep. So I think one way that you can do is write a Sitecore PowerShell extension reporting application, dive into what those publishing queues are, and then you can, the Sitecore PowerShell dialogues allows you to do selects, and you potentially use the select and literally delete it, and then write it, and then delete it. So you have to do some custom code using Sitecore PowerShell, unfortunately, to extend that and selectively delete that publishing job. Not so much of a concern with publishing service because those type of problems are way faster to get processed. So I guess this is where the publishing service will shine because it's so fast that you actually don't even care anymore. It's smart enough to do a revision ID comparison on the fly. It's really, really fast. So that should not be a problem when you use publishing service. But yeah, with the traditional publishing, it's quite tricky. You have to do a fair bit of work to be selectively delete those. And then it doesn't really talk, the publishing queue does not exactly talk to the event queue in a nice manner either. So it can get really, really tricky, unfortunately, yeah.
Publishing content and unpublishing content is pretty much 101 for CMS.
Yeah.
It's a surprise for an enterprise CMS and data matrix where the publishing in Sitecore has been flunky since version 5.
Any Sitecore people here? No, no Sitecore stuff. I am though. Yeah, the problem with, I guess, publishing is that, yeah, I think the amount of the database growth is now insane.
Since 2010.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, I don't have an answer for that. I'm not from Sitecore, unfortunately. But we all hear you. I think this is one of the reasons why publishing service has also been introduced. However, I would only say 4.1 and 4.0 is the version that I would start recommending people to use, unfortunately. Yes, Christian. Yes.
In hindsight, if you had a client now that was using 7 that had similar performance issues with publishing, do you still recommend going down the publishing service path, or would you suggest an upgrade first, or suggest something else?
Yep. So the question is, if a client is on 827, would I still suggest using publishing service? The answer will be no. The miscalculations for publishing service 2.2.1 is too big of a risk for a client to use. I think that scenario that you have described, unfortunately, that client is on a perpetual licensing model, which means they did not want to spend money to get a dedicated instance to handle dedicated publishing. So that was sort of a no-go in a way. However, they're in a catch-22 situation where they have 50 content overs that keeps slamming the CM every single day. It's either you get no CM because it's so heavily loaded that you can't even do anything, you can't even edit an item, or you get miscalculations of publishing every so often. So like pick one. Also, one more thing is publishing services allows you to horizontally scale your CM. Now that you're using publishing service or dedicated publishing service instance, you can now horizontally scale your CM to evenly take the load. However, you may or may not need sticky session. Actually, you don't need sticky session. But yeah, that allows you to scale that using an external publishing role. So yeah, that's
another question.
Yep.
So, assuming that you would have vertically scaled the CM server, let's assume that there's no publishing service, publishing was happening in a traditional manner.
Yep.
If you would have vertically scaled the CM server up to one of the highest available Azure boxes, assuming that the money was available to do that, do you feel like that, or have you tried that in terms of to see what the impact would be on
Yep.
similar situation.
Yep. So the question is, if I vertically scale the CM, whether I could get away with not using publishing service. The answer is it will only work to a certain point, and you still need that dedicated publishing instance. What I recommended to this particular tricky client was that I actually told them, hey, instead of using publishing service, why don't you use the dedicated publishing instance, because that means I didn't have to change any code. I didn't have to change any publishing logic at all for you. All you have to do is to spin up another VM to handle it. Unfortunately, the answer was no, due to the perpetual licensing agreement. So I did run through that before. So good tip though. Yep. So I did raise that with them before and say, let's do this. That means I don't want to write any code. I don't want to change any code. Use the public, spin up another VM, and they will also take all the indexing role.
Imagine accelerating the bus adding extra acceleration to that doesn't necessarily make it faster. It might seem faster.
Yeah.
Yeah, true, but it's not a responsibility to fix problems inside publishing.
So the other idea is that my other meetup talk, I did say that there are a couple of things that we can do to speed up CM, slightly off topic now. But to speed up CM, I think one thing we can do is I put a CDN in front of CM. I offload all the image optimization to a CDN, even in the CM instance as well. So all the image optimization has been offloaded. The other thing is if you use Dianoga, turn that off. It's very CPU intensive for CM. That actually doesn't serve any purpose for internal business users. Serves much better purpose for the content delivery. So turn that off. Start having a look at what is slowing things down in your CMS. Start turning those off. There's things like your access result cache to do with your user security in the security viewer, permissions on your tree, that sort of stuff. Turn it off. Your gutters in your validations, turn all of those off. Your beautiful wallpaper that you logged in, when you see it, turn it off. Blank background, hide all the system info, hide. Don't show them because that's one extra database call, hide them. Every time someone logs in, reset the user profile so that they don't see the beautiful stuff. Bucket search, turn that off. Use bucket search, no bucket tree, turn off bucket tree because that's another database call. Content editor, expand, what is that setting called, Blair? Content editor, expanding tree that looks at, render collapse section, change it to false, less SQL call. I have a massive Stack Overflow, Stack Exchange question that I've answered in that. So if you quickly search on Stack Exchange, you'll find my answer in there. There's a whole bunch of, it's crazy the amount of stuff that you have to do just to speed up. Also, obviously, in Azure Web Apps, I would recommend everyone use P3v2 on Web Apps in production. So that's also that. Yeah. So it's very challenging. Any more questions?
It's interesting you mentioned about parallelism. We tried that as well. And as you say, if you increase that too much, burns the CPU out to 100% and you get run out.
That's right.
You can get a sweet spot, maybe 2 parallels.
Yep. So we tried 2, and that was the max we could go as well. So the comment was the parallelism with the maximum threads. So I tried on 2, and that was it. Can't go anymore. Yeah.
But the person who designed the original code for the publishing queue used the print queue.
So hopefully later on, I think slightly off topic again. So if you look at EXM right now, the queue has been re-architected to use Rebus. Hopefully anything in the future with Sitecore, anything to do with queues, we'll be using some sort of message bus type related service. I think that will speed up things a little bit, hopefully, and it will make things a little bit more palatable, I think. So hopefully that will happen at some stage.
What do you reckon the most reliable ways for getting content to expire, be unpublished or published at say a specific time?
Good question. Question is, how do you get content to expire or refreshed at a given time? This is how I run it.
That's without expiring the entire cache for the site.
Oh, not going to happen, sorry. So I had a lot of thoughts in how to do content expiration. First, your code. Make sure you write really performant code. Utilize the content search indexes. Contain small domain indexes. So it doesn't matter whether there's cache or not. It's always fast. That's one thing. My other idea that I had a really, really good thing about is extending the cache key on the rendering cache. So you create more vary by whatever as part of your cache key. So using content availability in publishing service, you may be able to sort of extend those cache key a little bit maybe. Another way is to completely not use the implementation of the rendering cache that Sitecore has and switch the cache store using Redis. I think someone from Rackspace had this concept to try that. So all the rendering cache is in Redis rather than inside these each content delivery instances. Because what happens is that when you horizontally scale, those rendering caches are actually not in memory at the moment. So if you want consistent caching and you want to scale as quick as possible, ideally those should be on those type of cache should be on a memory cache type architecture. So that's something that I've been thinking about.
Use Redis, watch out, there's a site called patch.
Yep.
When you get a Redis condition, it can actually flood your Redis instance.
That's right. So 9.2 is supposed to fix that with the latest Redis driver. So upgrade to 9.2 as a first thing if you've got some Redis problem because it uses the latest Stack Exchange Redis driver. So yeah, that's just one thing to have a think about as well. But yeah, good call out on the Redis. It's always challenging with Redis. Yeah.
That patch can be applied to 9.0 and 1 as well.
Yep, that's right. Yep, it's only fixed in 9.2. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Any more?
Well, probably the 9.0.
Yeah. So any Redis issues, I think 9.2 has fixed a lot of those. Anything to do with Redis. So upgrade to 9.2 is a good excuse as an upgrade, I guess. But no one wants to do an upgrade. Everyone, yeah. Any more questions? Thanks, guys.